Did George Bush ever condemn President Obama after Sandy Hook?
Wait. Are you crying, Brian Kilmeade? Are you telling me, oh my God, Obama has condemned Trump's racism? Democrats attacking Republicans. Oh, they're so mean. Are you serious, dude? Are you serious? All Republicans ever do is viciously attack Democrats. How about Trump attacking Obama? Has that ever happened? Only 1 billion times.
So let me give you the context of what happened. Following the 2 mass shootings that occurred over the weekend, and by the way, the death toll has jumped from 29 to 31 people. Obama put out a statement, and he didn't mention Trump by name, but he certainly did mention certain characteristics that we see in Trump and his supporters. Obama put out a statement saying, quote, "We should soundly reject language coming out of the mouths of any of our leaders that feeds a climate of fear and hatred or normalizes racist sentiments. Leaders to demonize us that don't look like us, or immigrants threaten our way of life, or refer to people as subhuman, or America," this is a bad sentence to be honest with you, "or America belongs to one certain type of people. It hails no place in our politics or our public life. And it's time for the overwhelming majority of Americans of goodwill, of every race and faith and political party, to say as much clearly and unequivocally." So he's saying, look, Americans need to reject hate, because as we know, the shooting that took place in El Paso, Texas was motivated by a hatred for immigrants. Now, Fox and Friends didn't like that. They really didn't like that.
They don't like it.
And so not only did they address Obama's statements, they also fed Trump talking points, which we'll get to in just a second. Take a look.
I guess he's talking about the President Trump.
You think?
I think so. I'm just wondering did George Bush ever condemn President Obama after Sandy Hook? Did President Bush ever come after? He had 32 shootings of 4 and more mass shootings during his reign. Not many people said, wow, it's this President Obama's out of control. 17 so far, President Trump. It's way too high. But I have news for you. Mass shootings were happening before the president even thought about running for president of the United States.
Right. It's a political season, and the election's around the corner.
But he's not running anymore.
But they want to. The president is, and they want to continue to push that racist narrative.
So, I mean.
Okay, can I just jump in for a second?
Sure.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to Trump parroting them in a second, but first let's do math, and then let's address the misdirection. So they said, Obama had 32 mass shootings, and Trump's only had 17 so far. Obama was president for 8 years. Trump's been president for about 2.5 years. Do the math on that one. You'll see 17 is
like math,
much worse per year. Yes, they have a war on math. That's true. But really, that still misses the point. It isn't how many mass shootings you've had on your watch. It's what do you do about it? Obama wanted more gun control. I would argue Obama should have pushed for even greater gun control, but it didn't really matter at the end of the day because the Republicans blocked every measure that there was. Every piece of gun control that he argued for got blocked. Even if he'd pushed for more, in this case, it wouldn't have made a difference. And so gun control is the #1 issue there in that context. But in this context, Obama's talking about white nationalism, white supremacy, and how that is getting people angry and then grabbing their guns and doing the shootings. And so when you say there was 32 mass shootings under Obama, but they were largely not driven by white nationalism. They certainly were not encouraged to be white nationalists by Barack Obama. So it is a massive misdirection to try to make that comparison.
Yeah,
and that's why Fox News does it.
And I just want to provide evidence to the point that you're making, right? Because look, of course, people who want to defend Trump are going to continue defending him no matter what. But for anyone who actually is interested in evidence to what Cenk just said, the fact that Donald Trump does push white nationalism and fear and hatred toward immigrants, which again, that fear and hatred toward immigrants is what fueled the shooting in El Paso, Texas. Well, here's a quick compilation. We've shown you this before, we're gonna show it to you again.
Bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. You know what they are? They're thugs. Yeah, build that wall, you're right. I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides. You know what? We're not letting these people invade our country. If you look at the border and you look at the hundreds of thousands of people that are invading or at least trying to invade our country. It is an invasion. You know that. I say invasion, they say, isn't that terrible? I don't care what the fake media says. That's an invasion of our country. But how do you stop these people? You can't. There's no... That's only in the panhandle you can get away with that statement.
So while mass shootings certainly did happen under Obama's watch, they weren't fueled by the same hatred and fear toward immigrants and people of color. That is what we're seeing now under the Trump administration because of the fact that he's exploited racial tensions, racial division for his own political purposes. That's what he campaigns on. That's the only thing he can fall back on when he's talking to his supporters and his base because he hasn't delivered anything else. So he's gonna continue doing it, guys. He can give as many speeches following mass shootings, claiming that he wants to denounce white nationalism or racism or hatred. But in reality, that is his bread and butter. That is what got him to the White House.
So look, you can criticize Obama by saying that he actually deported more people than Trump in the beginning of his term. He absolutely did, both in removals and other ways of deporting people, not only near the border, but inside the country as well. That's a fair criticism of Obama, but he did not demonize them.
Right.
As he did that, he didn't go around saying they're criminals and rapists and it's an infestation and they're disgusting and filthy and it's an invasion. Now, those are the same words that the guy who did the shooting in El Paso used. He said it was an invasion and that somebody had to do something about it and he was gonna step up and do it. And he drove from a suburb of Dallas all the way down to El Paso to shoot more Latinos. So Obama didn't do any of that, and you'd have to be crazy to say that he did.
Exactly.
And Trump clearly, 100%, you just saw it with your own eyes, and that's just a fraction of the things that he has said, clearly did do that. He does stoke that division. By the way, Obama didn't say Trump. Now, we all know that he means Trump. Nobody's hiding that, right? But if Trump hadn't actually sown division or hatred, why would he take it personally?
Exactly. So now I'd like to get to my final point, right? In the exact same episode, Kilmeade decided to do exactly what Trump does, which is fearmonger about immigrants and stoke tensions toward immigrants. And he also defended Donald Trump's language, which has fueled all of this violence that we've seen in the country. Take a look.
When you have over 110,000 people coming a month, over 1 million last year, and then well over 1 million this year, if you use the term as an invasion, that's not anti-Hispanic, it's a fact. If the Russians were coming through Alaska, through Canada, the president would be using the same language. But it's the fact that's happening at the border. If you talk to people who are apolitical at the border, people want to look at the words infested, or and look at what the president's saying.
So essentially doing exactly what Trump does, making excuses for him. And again, it's all in the same episode, in the same segment. On one hand, you're going after Obama for pointing out the obvious about Donald Trump, and you're denying that Donald Trump is part of the problem. And then you just copy exactly what Donald Trump does to stoke all this fear toward immigrants.
And look, first of all, if the Russians were coming over the border, that would be their military. That's why it's different. That's why it would be an invasion.
Exactly.
Right, as opposed to people seeking asylum, which is not an invasion, that's people running for their lives. It's like saying when the boat full of Jews landed in Florida running from the Nazis. That's a real story. They landed in Florida, they were not allowed into the country. If at the time the president had said, that's an invasion. The Jews are trying to invade us, let's send them back to the Nazis. Now, they did send them back, which was a terrible stain in our history, but at least they had the decency not to call it an invasion, which is exactly what Trump is doing. But Kilmeade's not just parroting Trump. Remember, he's also parroting the El Paso shooter.
Yes.
The El Paso shooter said in his manifesto he was going to stop the Hispanic invasion.
That's exactly right. Now, we all know that Donald Trump watches Fox News. And Fox News, I mean, I think that this is now just this like vicious cycle where they feed him talking points, he regurgitates it, and the latest example is this story because he quoted both Kilmeade and Ainsley in his tweets. And I'm not gonna read the tweets, I just wanna show them to you real quick. The first one quotes Kilmeade on Fox and Friends, and the second quotes Ainsley.
And so yes, and it's a cycle where he takes propaganda from them, puts it out there, and they take propaganda for him, put it out there, and create this cycle. And you think like, well, it's silly. And if you watch the Young Turks, it's easy to dismantle. But remember, the people who watch Fox News are just in that bubble.
Right.
They almost never watch anything else. So when they see that, they're like, oh, it's so true. Everybody agrees. Trump agrees. Fox and Friends agrees. The Hispanic, the guy who called it an Hispanic invasion, the El Paso shooter, he agrees. Oops, right? But in their mind, that validates it. And so this is how you do propaganda. Well, hey, you made it this far. You must really like the Young Turks. Thank you. We really appreciate you. Now, another easy way to keep supporting us also helps keep your internet activities and data private, all with a push of the NordVPN app. Head to nordvpn.com/TYT right now for 75% off of your next 3 years.